Everyone, yellowhat, and Alchemy has been out for over 24 hours. And I figured I'd give you a little recap. For those of you who don't know what Alchemy is, it's the new format on Arena, Arena only. Its standard was some extra Arena only cards as well as rebalanced cards from normal standard, meaning it's an online format only. It has a bunch of cards that has these mechanics that can only be played online that you can't really replicate in paper. And yeah, so it's the new format. I know standard's not super popular in paper, and they've been struggling with standard in the past few years. We've had some okay standards, to be honest. People like to complain a lot, but some of the standards have been good. It's just been that when they've been good, it's been the same decks for a few years, or it's Epiphany, which is kind of a little turn off for some people. But if you look at just the past standard, you've got 4 decks, maybe blue-red turns, the blue-red variants, mono-white, mono-green, and the black snow decks. That's 4 decks. Black snow decks are pretty good against the creature decks. The creature decks can be decent against Epiphany, and Epiphany is good against the black decks, but really Epiphany and blue-red in general was probably decent against everything. But it was still kind of balanced, and there's some kind of rock, paper, scissors, so even that wasn't that bad. You can't really expect much more out of a standard format than 4 different decks, a kind of rock, paper, scissors meta, and deciding, okay, am I going to be playing against a lot of creature decks this weekend, and do I want to tune my deck that way? So for white, it's playing more, I don't know, portable holes in your main deck, or more fight card in green, or is it turns, it's playing more removal, or am I going to play against is it all day, meaning in my white deck, I want to play no portable holes and maybe some Valor stance instead, and in my blue-red deck, I want to play main deck Test of Talent, etc., etc. All right, I went on a little tangent, but yeah, let's get into Alchemy. And first, the rebalance cards. I'm gonna go through the list and through all the cards, and we'll see. So you've got Luminar Aspirant. So what they did is that the counter goes on the creature at the end of turn, not beginning of combat. So I think it's actually a pretty big nerf. I think all the cards they nerfed, they did I don't know about a good job, but they definitely made them way worse. There's been kind of an uproar, especially on that one, because the nerfs applies to historic, and surely the white deck in historic is good, but didn't warrant a nerf. So some people were upset about it, and you're not getting your wild cards You're not getting your wild cards refunded, and that's a little disappointing. Hopefully, Wizard starts making a gesture, or just actually comes up with a dusting system, something, because this kind of feels bad every time they nerf cards or ban cards, or when they ban cards, you get wild cards, but you also sometimes makes your whole deck unplayable. So they always feels like, not always, but most of the time, they kind of do the strict minimum. This Angel card, so a tiny bit of play, but I'm not going to go through every card. I'm going to go through the cards that stood out to me. And I guess the first one on the list is Seagate Evangel. Spoiler alert, I think that card is better than New Aspirant, and I think it might actually be better than pre-nerf Luminarch Aspirant. So they nerfed a 2-drop and they gave us a better 2-drop. So what did it do? 3-1 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, you conjure a copy of that card into your hand, and you discard it at the end of the next end step, or at the beginning of the next end step. And when it enters the battlefield, you also tap target permanent you don't control. On turn 2, you play it. It's a free one that taps a permanent. Maybe it gets your 1-drop through, maybe it doesn't. The extra power is nice with Hopeful Initiate in the white decks. It can pump the Initiate 2 turns in a row. That's nice. And what it does later in the game is that when you play it on turn 4, you play one, you get a second copy. If you have 4 mana, you play a second one, so you get 2 free ones. You get to tap up to 2 blockers. That card's been totally nuts. I've only played the white deck 4 or 5 matches, but that card is just ridiculous. They already won me so many games, and yeah, it's just nuts. I'm not gonna go forever on every card, but yeah. Another card that's completely nuts, that's the artist hidden, but Inquisitor Captain. It's basically a creature that collected companies in some ways. So for a white and free, you get a free vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, you get two creatures at random from your deck that cost 3 or less. You get to choose one of the two, put it into play, and shuffle the other one back in your library. There is a condition though, you need to have at least 20 creatures between your hand, your library, and your graveyard. So basically you have to build your deck was, you know, maybe 22 creatures, 24 creatures. The one thing that can mess with the captain is exile effects. So if you're playing exactly 20 creatures and they exile one of your creatures, you're screwed, so be careful. And there's, you know, I actually got paired against a mill deck that plays Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which is a mill card, but that also exiles. So that card can potentially actually screw the captain, even if you have like 28 creatures. But yeah, that card's ridiculous. I saw Saffron Olive tweet, he think that maybe that card's better than Company. I wouldn't be surprised to see in Historic, you know, a deck with 4 captains, 4 Company, and 28 dorks, 24 lands, call it a day. That card's been also super strong. I have the white deck here, you can see. It has the Evangel as new cards, and the Captain, and yeah, that's it, and the nerfed Faceless Haven, but I'll get to that. Next card that stood out, Electrostatic Blast. That card is not good in control decks. I tried it in blue-red control, it was not good. It has looked very good though in burn decks, mono red, or I played against a sweet Delver deck that was playing the new Geistbleister as well as Delver of Secrets. They were playing the buff Demolitch. Demolitch got an extra point of toughness. It's a 4/4 now. So yeah, that card's a shock, and it turns your next burn spell into some card advantage. Basically, you play that card, and then the next time you play an instant or a sorcery spell, you look at the top 3, and you play 1 until end of turn. So it's like kind of expressive iteration, but for turns your next spell into half of an expressive iteration, kind of. So it's not great in control because it's harder to sequence your spells to get value. And the 2 damage, you could maybe play 1 or 2 copies, but you don't want too many copies of that card because there's a lot of creatures you need to kill that have 3 or 4 toughness. All right, next. That card has stood out when my opponent was playing that blue-red deck. It was nice that it helps you fill up the graveyard for Demolitch. I don't know if it's worth it in a straight-up burn deck. It might still be okay. But yeah, 2/2 prowess for 2 when it enters the battlefield. That one has also a restriction, 20 or more instant or sorceries, so kind of like the captain. 20 or more instant and sorceries in your deck. Graveyard, hand, library. You may discard a card. If you do seek an instant or sorcery card, seek means you take a random instant or sorcery card from your deck in your hand. Sorry. There's all these new terms. There's seek, there's draft. We'll get into it. So that card was decent. This card, someone played it once against me. I think it's maybe a little underwhelming, but it could be okay. It's kind of like a Robber of the Rich, but it doesn't have haste. It has first strike instead. Yes, let's move on. You can always look up these cards if you want to, but I don't want to make the video too long. So Brittle Blast, that card's been pretty impressive. Solid removal spell. I'm not sure how much it's going to end up seeing play, but it could see a decent bit of play. Brittle Blast, a red and 2 creatures and planeswalker your opponent controlled perpetually gain. If this permanent would die, exile it instead. Deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So concretely what it means is that it will kill an old growth troll and they don't get the enchantment on the land. And it's very good against the black sacrifice deck that has started to show up. Meaning the creature you kill gets exiled, so they don't get the triggers, they don't get a Shambling Gas trigger, they don't get the Eye Witch trigger, they don't get Death, what's it called? Black X enchantment trigger, you know, life gain. You don't get a Blood Artist trigger, and it also gives that ability to other creatures. So if you kill if they have multiple creatures in play, all their creatures get exiled when they will die, so super effective against that deck. Sorry, that wasn't the greatest explanation. Next card, Turav's Disciple. Actually, Huey told me he wasn't super impressed about that card. Was that card the first time he played, was it? I'm not exactly sure in which deck he was playing it, but that card's been solid against me, honestly. Just in a burn deck, you know, maybe you play that in a full spell deck with Alchemist or just regular burn deck, but the body is solid. Having a bunch of bolt in your deck is good, and if you get to attack multiple times, it's a lot of density. So I always a card. I should start by explaining what the card does, right? So red and 2, free haste, and whenever it attacks, you conjure 4 cards in Lightning Bolt into your library, then shuffle. So basically, it means you have now 4 Lightning Bolt in your deck, so you can just draw a Lightning Bolt. Next card that someone's played against me and was impressive, the Dragon. It's 4/4, red 2, flying. When it enters a battlefield, you target a land you don't control, and that land loses all its abilities except mana abilities, and it gains at the beginning of your upkeep. This permanent deals 2 damage to you unless you sacrifice it. So they play it, and on your next upkeep, you have to decide, do I pay 2 life to keep my land, or do I sacrifice it? So really good in aggressive decks. Someone also played it out of a Rakdos deck against me, a more mid-range deck. I felt like that was a little out of place, but in a burn aggressive deck, puts a ton of pressure, and I was impressed. Nerfed Goldspan Dragon. For those of you who don't know how they nerfed it, they basically removed the ability of getting a treasure when you target it. So no more funny business of playing my dragon and being able to negate a Doomblade or whatnot, you know? And not too many people have played dragon against me so far. We're going through the list pretty fast, actually. Oh, that's because I don't have every color. I don't know what. I guess it's because I have that white deck up. All right, interesting. We did the white cards. We did the red cards. As you can tell, I did not really prepare that, but figured it would give it a better flow. Wizard's Class got the buff, not great though. That new card, that was one of the cards I've played with the most, and I've seen other people try to play it, but ultimately I'm not sure it's great. It's 1/3 for a blue and 1. When it enters the battlefield, you choose an instant or sorcery from your hand with mana value greater 3 or greater, and it perpetually gains the spell cost 2 less to cast, meaning you cast it for 2 less, and if you play it again, it still costs 2 less forever. So scenarios that can come up in theory and actually came up in practice for me was playing Devious Cover-Up, reshuffling the card that was 2 less, drawing it again. It works on flashback spells. It works on Foretold Epiphany. It pretty much works on everything. So yeah, it works with Lyra. So if you play a spell later in the game, you play a Lyra, you play it from your graveyard. It also has that cost. So a lot of applications. I think that card is kind of a trap. It might be good in small numbers, unclear. The body is kind of decent in some matchups, but I'm not sure it does quite enough. Absorb Energy, that card, people have cast it against me. I guess it's kind of whatever. This card's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty good. It's blue and 2. It's the divination with an upside, and the upside is that you can exile an instant or sorcery from your hand and kind of loot away. Basically, you cycle it away, and even better, you kind of exile them totally from your deck. So it could be good if you're playing some, you know, one of the scenarios is you're playing a control mirror match, you cast that card, and you get to get rid of your dead removal spell in hand, and you get to seek an instant or sorcery instead, and you also get to exile all the copies from your deck. So not only do you get to kind of transform the dead removal spell you have in hand into another random instant or sorcery from your deck, but you know you're not also going to draw any more of that card. New Demolitch. Cards in very little playing standard, but I was impressed by that blue-red deck. I don't know if they drew very well, but they were playing a bunch of burn spells, Demolitch. Their deck was flowing nicely. and they made good use out of it. Discover the formula. That card is super sweet, and I was impressed at first, but basically I've been playing blue-red, and I guess I'll show you what I got to, but I was not happy with blue-red. I was losing to the aggressive decks, to the creature decks, whether it's mono-red, mono-white, mono-green, werewolf. I was just losing to these decks, so I think if you want to build blue-red right now, you have to build it anti-creature, and I'm not sure Discover the Formula is the way you want to go. But yeah, for 6 mana, you seek free non-land cards, and then the non-land cards in your hand get that 1 mana cost reduction forever. So basically it draws you free spells, which is sweet because usually you want spells when you get to 6 mana. You don't need the lands so much, even though it is nice to keep making your land drops. It also reduces the casting cost of creatures, not just instants or sorcery. So pretty good card advantage, pretty good late game. Epiphany. They did it, I think. They really did it. They nerfed it. I don't think that card is good anymore. I don't think you can play blue-red with Galvanic Iteration and Epiphany. That's my hot take. The nerf is huge. For those of you who don't know what the nerf is that when you cast it for 7 without having foretold it first, you don't get the tokens. And the foretell cost is also 7 mana now instead of 6. So you only get the tokens if you foretold, and you have to still pay 7 mana for it. That also means that the copies don't give you the tokens. So even if you foretold Epiphany, if you copy it, you only get the tokens from the original card, not the copies. That's another nerf. And yeah, the card's just not that exciting anymore. Might be proven wrong soon, but honestly, blue-red is the deck I've played the most, and I don't think Epiphany is really playable anymore. So yeah, for those of you wondering, maybe that's what you were waiting for when I started the video, when you loaded the video, know if Epiphany is still dominant or not, but I don't think so. I think really all the cards they nerfed had an impact. All right, what do we have next? The Witch. I'll show you what the Sacrifice deck looks like, but people have been playing mono black Sacrifice and been doing well with it. I tried it a few matches. It was not good for me, but you know, it's really small samples at this point, so we'll see. But this is one of those weird cards that drafts. So we haven't talking about draft. I'm sure a lot of you know what draft means, but draft is usually it's 15. So it's 15 cards attached to the Witch, and they give you free at random, and you pick one. So there's an RNG element, but you also have some agency, and you can see there's usually kind of a theme. But yeah, I heard Patient Zero is pretty good. Black and 1, 2/2 lifelink zombie. Damage isn't removed from creatures you're opening control during cleanup steps, meaning, you know, they can't just block your zombies forever, etc. Lifelink. I heard that card is decent. I actually haven't tried zombies or played against zombies yet, but heard that card is good. Next, that card I've seen a lot of play. It's in the Sacrifice deck, Sanguine Brushstroke. I didn't think that card would be very good. I've been kind of impressed playing against it. I also played with it and was not so impressed. I'm not so sure, but yeah, it's an enchantment that gives you a Blood Artist when it enters the battlefield. It costs black 1. I'm hiding the casting cost. And it also gives you a blood token, and whenever you sacrifice a blood token, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So yeah. That's a card that no one's played against me, but I tried it in that black deck for a couple matches, and it was actually pretty impressive for me. 4 mana, free Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card with the greatest mana value among cards in their hand. Create a blood token. So it's a solid body, Death Touch. You get the card advantage from the discard. You get the card selection from the blood token. I think this card's pretty solid, and we might see it see some play. They don't reveal their hand, and that's because it's an arena only card, meaning Arena's not gonna cheat you. They're gonna have to discard the most expensive cards, but you don't get to see their hand. Red, we went through the pup. 1/2 for 1. Green, and you gain 1 life when it enters the battlefield, and the next time you cast a creature spell, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it, a trample counter, and a vigilance counter. So it buffs your next creature. That card's decent. It also has a decent type wolf, relevant creature type. So that card has looked good against me. Pretty solid. Nothing super special, but solid. People memed a lot on the Griddle Huntmaster. I actually haven't played with or against that card yet, so I'm not sure if it's super good. But yeah, no, has a lot of text though. Chariot. So how did they nerf Chariot? You only get 1 cat token, but it only crews for 2. So I was kind of joking that it's not even a nerf, but it definitely is a nerf. Even though in some spots it's actually going to turn out to be better. Imagine they play Chariot, you play a sweeper, and then next turn all they need is a ranger's class to crew it and copy the token. So in some cases it's going to be better, but I haven't played a ton against it. You probably still play 4 copies in the green deck, even though there's new green cards. Someone's played that card against me once. I died to it, but I would have died to just any 4 drops. I was just dying to their draw. What's next? What else? Someone tried to... someone cast Omnath against me. They were playing a weird 4-color deck. I think they nerfed Omnath to the ground. They added a colorless and turned the draw into a scry. So they really killed it. I don't think Omnath's ever going to really see play in a competitive ever again. Who knows? Haven nerfed it by removing 1 power. It's pretty huge nerfs, a lot of damage, and from someone who's played a lot of Lyra deck in Standard, I know that was a pretty common spot. You play your Lyra, and you're in a spot where you have to trade with their Haven or else you die. So I could see that spot coming up and being very relevant amongst others, Is that it? Key of the Archive. So that card, I think, is maybe one of the cards that's so far been most overrated and maybe overhyped. 4 mana for an artifact. It enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add 2 mana of any combination of colors, meaning a white and a red, for instance. You'll see why that's relevant. And when it enters the battlefield, you draft a card from Key to the Archive spellbook, then discard a card. So once again, 15 cards. You've got Approach, Day of Judgment, Time Warp, Counterspell, Demonic Tutor, Doomblade, Lightning Bolt, Claim the Firstborn, Frozen Grip, Regrowth, E-Spark, Electrolyze, Growth Spiral, Lightning Helix, and Purify. I went through all of them because they're actually pretty good Magic cards. So usually you get something pretty decent. You can still get some bad piles, but once again, they give you 3 at random, you pick 1. And yeah, it gives you the mana you need to cast these cards. It's pretty sweet, it ramps you, and it's kind of card advantage, kind of card selection. The discard part has actually been pretty relevant for me. It kind of adds up, it hurts a tiny bit. But yeah, that card is super sweet. I don't know if it will actually see play in tier 1 decks though. So yeah, I think that's the card. I mean, I didn't go through every card, but I think I went through every card that people have played against me or that I've played a decent bit. Now, that's the white deck. As I said, I think Seagate Evangel is a bomb. I think white is probably even better than before, but I think some of the other decks are also better than before. But yeah, Captain, Evangel, a bomb. The sideboard has no new cards. Already 25 minutes. All right, next deck that's been making a splash. Mono black is a list. I'm not sure what the optimal list looks like. Obviously, it's only been a day, but it has the Witch, on top of the Eye Witch and the Shambling Yes, it has the new Cursebound Witch. It has Sanguine Brushstroke. And I was playing that card. I think the list I've seen did not have that card. I wanted to try it out. It was more just trying out that card. And it was actually the best card for me in the matches I played. I lost both matches I played with this deck, but I think it might be strong. It might have been a fluke. I did run into a mono red deck that wrecked me with the bristle removal. And just the exile effect was really backbreaking. I've been playing really poorly especially these past 24 hours. Yeah. I'll give you a quick look at what my latest blue-red list look like. So I tried no top end at all, just Lyra. Right now I have one iteration to go with one epiphany, one horror, one discover the formula. So, you know, kind of some top end. I didn't want to be too clunky. And then I'm relying on Lyra and Fading Hope against the creature deck, some Deluge. Since you're not playing Galvanic Iteration, I think Deluge is maybe better than Behold, but it's not even clear. And then I've got a mix of all the removal spell, including some of the new one, Brittle Blast. And just the one copy of Chandler. You don't want to draw too many, but I figured maybe one is okay. More of the same in the sideboard and some usual suspect stuff. So not super impressed. Oh, one card I didn't talk about. Forsaken Crossroads. I think that card's really good. I think it's a new land. It comes into play tapped. When it comes into play, you choose a color. It makes mana of that color. And you can scry one. So it's like kind of a bad temple in some spots because it comes into play tapped and you scry one by only makes one color. Even if you're playing more than two colors, I guess you get the choice. But if you weren't the starting player, you may untap the Crossroad instead. So instead is important because I didn't read the card well. I thought when you're on the draw, you got to play the untapped and it's scried. So when you're on the play, it's always come into play tapped. You scry one, you choose a color. When you're on the draw, you have the option between either tapped, scry one, or untapped. So that card's been really good. I think it's gonna be at its best in 2 and 3 color mid-range decks and control decks. Who knows, might even see play in some of the aggressive decks. But yeah, I've been impressed. I think that card's going to be good. The rest of the deck hasn't been super great for me so far. Other deck I played a decent bit. Felt maybe a bit better against creature decks. It was blue-white. You have the Archive, you have the Fairy to untap Artifact. That was a kind of sweet combo. I was trying out Unexpected Conversion, add 4 Channelers, and free discover the formula, but not sure these cards are good. Andrew Cuneo seems to think these cards are really bad, and might be better off playing your blue decks without them right now. But yeah, good to know these cards in Mirror Skull Seagate, kind of sweet with discover the formula. It's more density of really high impact cards. You're more likely to hit something big when you seek, because seek is random. And it also, you know, sometimes you need that land drop the turn after you play formula, and if you draw call, if you seek for call or Seagate, then you might get that land drop. But yeah, once again, 4 of the Crossroads. Yeah, Keto Archive looks super sweet, but I think it might be a bit of a trap and a bit overrated right now. But yeah, that's it. That's you know, first look at Alchemy after 24 hours. We'll see you know, how accurate my takes are in a few days, few weeks. But that was my first impression playing with the set and against the set. I hope it gave you a little insight, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.